Residents were handcuffed on the ground. In the end, police took their weapons but let them stay in their homes.
They were a little bit threatened because our weapons were bigger than their weapons.
Marks, look, and ended up like this.
Then, Patty showed them a small revolver she was carefully holding in the palm of her hand. A camera crew was there to capture what unfolded next.
I said, it's not even loaded. And I dropped it on the floor.
You got a gun?
Well, they punched me in the face. Look at my black and blue marks. Look at what they did to me. They dragged me out of here. I really thought that.
Okay, so there's the terrorist in America. That's who the system is going after. And I want to encourage folks watching this show tonight here at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv, you who've made this transmission possible, to tape this, to record it. We're going to restream it after the show tonight and to get it out to everybody you know, post it on YouTube, you name it. Because the people need to understand, tyrants use any crises as a power grab. What government in their right mind would, for all intents and purposes 5 years ago, now 6, abolish the National Guard? The National Guard was always under the governor's control. Governors could ask other states to help them. They knew how to get bulldozers out, fire berms, knockout fires. I mean, the minute they got started, it'd be, come on in, fire department, help us. The governor over the state. Now, our National Guard has been federalized. Most of them are overseas. The few that are here are standing around, and FEMA tells them what to do. And our own state's fire departments are being told to stand down. I mean, it's unprecedented. It's just like people being arrested all over the country for having lemonade stands or garage sales or gardens in their yard. 93 days in jail the lady faced. It seems obscene and crazy. Well, Hitler seemed obscene and crazy. Stalin did. Mao did. It's about power. It's about breaking your will. And our republic is under attack. Now, expanding on this before we get to Paul Watson and Gerald Celente in this extended special InfoWars Nightly News report, I want to get into Fukushima because on InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.com we have links to mainstream news articles today where Fukushima is still melting down. 5 of the 6 giant reactors have totally exploded and melted down. And in the last few weeks, they admit that 3 days into Fukushima, happened on a Friday, by Monday, they knew that 3 of the reactors, later it was all 5 of the 6, had exploded. I knew on that Monday morning when I watched the reactor explode that it was a complete and total meltdown and a meltdown explosion. And then I interviewed top nuclear physicists who'd been in Japan and who had gotten samples. Of course, Western governments all knew what the mushroom cloud meant, but it showed that fission had taken place, that a Chernobyl-type explosion, much bigger than Chernobyl, had taken place. That was reactor 3 with uranium and super deadly plutonium. And it turned out that they had 500,000 spent fuel rods. Well, it was a total of 614,000. But on that particular reactor, the majority of them, 500+ thousand, were stored on the roof and in holding tanks and were spewed into the air. Now, a couple months into this, how did the EPA respond? And you can go to the articles on our sites and link through the EPA. They came out and said, we're going to raise radioactive isotopes in the dozens of types that are in the air blowing across the Pacific onto the U.S. We're going to raise the isotopes levels. That's just one of many explosions. We're going to raise it from the levels that we say were safe to 1,000 times what they previously were, with some isotopes to 25,000 with others, and some isotopes 100,000 times what they previously said was safe. And it ran the gamut from 1,000 times, 3,000 times to 100,000 times with actual links to the EPA. And the EPA came out and said, hey, we're going to have a public comment period. We're still going to do what we want, kind of like the Super Congress controls the power of the purse now, not the General Congress. And if Congress doesn't vote the way they want, the Super Congress just does it anyways. It's the same thing with the EPA. Oh, there's a quiet comment period where you can email us. We're going to raise the level of radiation 1,000 to 100,000 times what's safe. But we'll take your comment. And, of course, the vast majority of comments by scientists and others were this is a horrible idea, radiation's very bad for you, and they just said we don't care. And they did raise it a few months ago after a month-long comment period. Now, the Prime Minister of Japan's had to resign over this. Most of the other ministers have. They've got radiation sickness. People are dying. They've tried to keep it quiet. But I've even been in hotel rooms and watched Japanese TV in English on it where they are now admitting it. I was out in L.A. about a month ago and was shocked to see them admitting what we were getting from reporters months before. So it's now come out. But the only place it hasn't come out is here in the U.S. A month into this, they were having levels 25, 30, 40, 50, depending on what state, as far away as Vermont, on the other side, of North America from Japan, over across the Pacific, in milk, in produce. When they had Chernobyl in 1986, for 6 months all over Europe where the plume hit, from northern to western to eastern to southern, they brought food in from other continents, frozen. They brought frozen powdered milk in. No one was allowed to eat the cows. No one was allowed to eat the milk where it aggregates and builds up. Bioaccumulates is the proper term. No one was allowed to eat it or touch it. And they estimate, the UN does, over 1 million deaths from cancer. Here, the Japanese got caught just mislabeling stuff as foreign to let folks eat it, and turned out it was very radioactive. Then, expanding on that, I just can't believe this is happening. It comes into the United States, and they just raise the level and say it's safe. The elite have gone crazy. They're on such power trips, they're fiddling while Rome burns like Nero. They think they're invincible. All right, let's go ahead and get into some other important news dealing with brainwashing. That's right, brainwashing. We're being taught the official fable that 9/11 was an outside job, but when you actually study the facts, it is a complete fairy tale. Now, in the UK, as well as the United States, it's now being added into children's textbooks, the complete official story. Now, the mayor of London has made some very bizarre statements, and we're going to be looking at this in more depth in just a moment. But there's the report at Infowars.com. Official 911 fable to become part of school curriculum. Government-supported effort to encourage critical thinking actually encourages obedient regurgitation of lies. This upcoming Sunday marks the 10th anniversary of the tragic attacks of September 11th, and we're going to be having special reports every weeknight looking at different facets of 9/11. This coming Thursday, we're going to look at the 10 smoking guns of 9/11 that prove that the attacks were an inside job meant to create a pretext to destroy our constitutional republic, establish a domestic police state, and launch a global corporate empire that would be defended and expanded using American blood, sweat, and tears. But I wanted to talk to Paul Joseph Watson of PrisonPlanet.com, who joins us from England, with a breakdown of an article he wrote today, Official 911 Fable to be part of school curriculum. Then we're going to expand into some other news reports, RAI, Novastat, and others. Al-Qaeda acquires weapons in Libya, EU official, head of counterterrorism says, and more, including the one, the only, Chuck Norris coming out and saying, why is the government rebranding the threat of terror from Muslim Al-Qaeda onto Tea Partiers, conservatives, and predominantly wicked white people? Joining us with more on all of this is Paul Watson. Paul, this is pretty amazing, but it's hidden in plain view. The official fable, despite the fact that in some polls the vast majority question it, the official fable of 9/11 is to now be taught to U.S. school children, force-fed.
Well, in the United Kingdom as well, yeah. I mean, this reeks of creepy top-down government-sponsored indoctrination. And what this is about is it's called the London 9/11 Project, and it poses as a charity, but in fact it's a creature of the establishment. It was actually launched yesterday in London with this unveiling of this macabre 9/11 memorial by the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. And this charity is also supported by the Port Authority of New York, Common Purpose, which is a it's a steering committee in the United Kingdom, and many figures of the establishment, including the treasurer of the Conservative ruling party in Britain. And this whole project claims that it's about encouraging students. They're going to be aiming this at teenagers, 12 to 16 years old in British schools, to encourage students to engage in critical thinking about 9/11. And yet its first mandate, when it was rolled out, was to, quote, demolish conspiracy theories about the attacks.
That's right. We have the London Telegraph interview, and it was in your article yesterday, but this is also going on here in the U.S., a similar program is why I raised that point, with the mayor of London, like Bozo the Clown, unveiling this new memorial and then saying it's our job to have a controlled demolition of these conspiracy theories that 10 years on continue to grow. And we've got all these BBC hit pieces, U.S. hit pieces. The system is scared to death. I mean, their favorite tool of staging terror attacks and using it to crack down on the public, they are hopping mad, Paul, that it's not working.
They're mad and they're desperate, which is why this week sees a complete onslaught of new 9/11 hit pieces against 9/11 Truth by the likes of BBC, National Geographic and the History Channel, which I find it pretty rich, pretty ironic that the History Channel, every time I turn it on, is talking with, lending credence and credibility to UFOs and alien invasions, giving people platform to spread that topic.
And Bigfoot,
Chupacabras. Yeah, everything that's rife with misinformation, and yet anything to do with 9/11, it's always a hit piece against 9/11 Truth.
Well, because the global banksters don't care if you're obsessed with leprechauns all day, but they are concerned if you know that Building 7 was blown up and they announced it on TV beforehand, or the U.S. troops were already massed in Afghanistan in and around for the invasion, or hijackers trained at U.S. bases. Please continue, Paul.
Well, precisely. They don't want real critical thinking, which is why when they say, this is to encourage critical thinking because people are confused about the attacks, it's not that. It's the opposite. Anything that questions the officially state-approved fable of 9/11 is rejected. This is indoctrination. It's the opposite of critical thinking.
But this is great because they're so discredited, and their false flag attack and 7/7 as well is the pretext to sell this total abolition of freedom. Their great new religion of tyranny, the foundational event, like the birth of baby Jesus, this is the birth of baby fake terror. It's all basically been overturned now. And so the more they flail about bleeding out, the more people question because they have no credibility. Don't they get it that when they attack us, they only add credibility? I love it.
Well, I mean, that's why the polls, whereas immediately after 9/11 and in the years following, fear of terrorism amongst the American public was up at 80%, fear that an attack would be about to happen. It went down to 60, and now it's at less than 40. It's in the 30s. So people are not afraid of terrorism because they're starting to find out the real forces behind it.
Well, look, I do British radio, big national. I do the public. I do the talk sport that's private. I do it all the time. The hosts admit that they will beg for callers, Paul, that disagree with me when I'm on like a 2-hour interview sometimes, and one person will call in and they can't even talk. They'll get hundreds of emails and text messages. It's big on UK talk radio. We are the majority. I mean, I saw 5 years ago a poll in the New York Times, scientific, Angus and Reed New York Times, 83% question the official story. I mean, their fable, their hoax, just like the JFK, 92% on average know the government did that. And now we have the tapes coming out with Arthur Schlesinger, the famous historian, with Jackie Kennedy saying the government killed him. We've got LBJ's own lawyer, Barr McClellan, coming out saying they killed him. We've got his own mistress coming out, LBJ's mistress. We've got all these witnesses and the head hitman, E. Howard Hunt, who ran assassination teams worldwide. I mean, what more do we need, Paul?
Well, this is exactly why they're freaking out, and this is why they need positive reinforcement, a psychological brainwashing ploy, to ram home the pseudoscience that giant steel frame buildings can collapse in their own footprint at near free fall speed, and it's about reinforcing the myth
that magic passports survive on their own and are found the same day. It's
right, precisely, because